Merci. Ça nous amène à la fin de la période des questions. Madame Corbeil.
Oui, Madame Martha Band.
Good evening.
Good evening. Milan.
Page 2, item 4004. And items 20.07 and 20.08, I have the same questions.
Okay.
Why are we spending money conducting polls? And with no details, the 1.5 million borrowed money for parks.
Well, I think, thank you for the two questions, Mrs. Bond. And the question regarding the polls, as you know, we're always looking at ways of improving. And in order for us to do that, we need to poll our citizens to find out what's working well and what isn't, to make sure that we take the appropriate action to improve the services that you use, probably you more than most every day, that we can at least provide that for you in a better way. And this is why we do polls, as do companies, as do other cities. We decided to do this as well. And that's part of the whole experience that we want to provide our residents. And in order to do that, we need to create a poll and ask the right questions to make sure that the citizens tells us what we need to do to improve. Just as a side note, I can tell you that those little cards that you see at the front desk whenever you come in, we did a preliminary poll on those that we received, and I don't remember exactly, I think it was 380, 380, is that what it is? 380 that used our front services and our urban planning services, and all of them, if not all of them, are over 90% satisfaction. And it's a series of, and you know the cards because you've seen them, right? They
I
have
filled one out.
Right, and so there's a series of questions, and in all of the categories, all of them are over 90%. So it doesn't mean we're perfect, it just means that there's still some room for improvement. And this is why we go through the process on a continual basis. It's not because it works today that it's going to be like that in a month or in a year from now. So there's that constant improvement that we need to do, and not only educating our staff as well to be able to serve our I call it clients, but it's the residents more than anything else in a better way, effective way, I would say.
But that didn't cost anything. It was in-house.
Well, it cost
Except for some
in the
paper.
administrative part of it, but you're right. It didn't cost.
And
It
it's
wasn't
a good idea.
It wasn't a scientific poll like what these others will do. The first one, just so because you asked a question, so I'm going to tell you what the Léger poll will do is it will poll the demographics of a particular area that will allow us to be able to provide adequate services by sector. When we do, for example, a park improvement, when we do anything along those lines, we'll know exactly what we need per area in our borough and not randomly install all types of equipment when we know that that sector particularly would have no use for it. So the Léger poll is designed in a way that it would be able to do that. And so we look forward to doing that because we don't have the mechanic in the borough to be able to address those issues when it comes to demographics necessarily in an area and the type of services that they seek, proximity services that they seek in their area. And so that's why we're doing that one. The second one, I'm just looking at it because I'm trying to remind myself of what it is. That's the one as well that is in terms of satisfaction to the residents. I mean, we need to do a broader poll and not necessarily just the folks that come to our service counters. It's a broader poll throughout our community to know the types of services that we offer. Are they satisfied? And is it something that we need to improve? And so I think that as we move forward, and as an entity, a public service entity that's always striving to improve, these tools are necessary for us. And yes, there is a cost associated to that, but I think it's justified, especially knowing the information that we're going to get back is going to improve the service that we give you and others every day.
Well, we did have the public consultations for the urban plan, and people submitted briefs.
Yeah?
And that was, there was a certain cost to that, but we have that. And we also have because I'm thinking, we have a priority and a plan
Yeah.
to address these.
Yeah.
And very little of those action plans, I forgot the number, exact title in all the pages of Chapter 18.
The Sustainable Development Plan, is that what it is?
It was actually the urban plan.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
the public went to a public meeting, I
Yeah.
believe, about sustainable development,
Yeah.
but the comments and briefs presented or hoped to be presented by citizens, I don't know if that was compiled, but it was during the urban plan, and
Yeah.
there's a, strategy and action plan,
Yeah.
and most of this has never been implemented.
There's
So,
a
I
lot that's
mean,
been implemented already, because this is an ongoing,
well,
just
maybe
like,
we can address this at a next
Sure,
council
sure.
meeting, because I'd like to review it, because I do remember I reviewed it, especially the transportation,
yeah,
because there was something about the parking problems
Yeah.
at the Roxboro train
yeah,
station.
and we're
I
dealing with
used
that one, so I'd be happy.
But there were a lot of things not addressed.
I would happy to be revisiting that with you as well. And that too will allow us to revisit the information. And if it's something that we haven't addressed, certainly it's something that we can bring back and work on. That's the goal of all this.
Will there be a review of this to change priorities or to actually
Well, this is an ongoing,
set the priorities?
yeah, well, this is an ongoing, good question. This is an ongoing internal discussion that takes place in terms of if it's a file that hasn't started yet, or if we're partially completed, if it's still valid today. So there's that constant sort of review of it. And if there are some that have to be adjusted and prioritize other issues that we've talked about in the past, well, then we look at that collectively as a team, up until such time where a new plan will be presented to the public with new priorities, and also revisiting the ones that were prioritized in the past, and let you know how far along we are in accomplishing some of these issues. So this is an ongoing. This is what the administration does on a continuous basis. I mean, it's not something that just sits on paper. For example, if I look at the polls that tell us what is at 90% compared to others that are at 95, 96, all it tells me is that the public is generally satisfied with that aspect of what we do in customer service, but it also tells me that that's the one that we have to work on the most, where we train our employees, we give them the tools that are necessary, and so on. So yes, it is encouraging to know that the public that comes to our service counters is generally happy, but it doesn't mean that we stop there. It just means that we keep striving for better, and this is what that whole launch was for us in terms of that customer experience that we wanted to unveil and have our public understand that collectively we're doing everything we can to provide this service to our citizens. This is just a tool. It just guides us. That's nothing more than that. And I hope your card was
It should
among
be
these
in
90.
concrete.
What's that? It should be in concrete?
We don't need more policies that go all over the place.
Well, what did I just tell you? What I said to you is it's nice to have this on paper, but it doesn't stop there for us.
Okay.
It's a feel-good moment for the moment, but after that, it just makes us continue and strive, if anything, to improve, or at least to keep it at these statistics. And I suspect that maybe one of your cards was in that 90%. Not sure.
It did have to do with service by the staff.
Fantastic.
I do want you to know, because you limited it, it makes sense, to certain questions,
Yeah.
right? And so, of course, I felt that there was you know what I thought there was improvement for?
Where?
Access to public information.
You said that you were happy with that? Or
No,
you-
I said that needed some improvement.
Okay, but can I ask you, and I need you to try to be as honest as possible. I know you always are.
Everything else got a 95.
But let me ask you seriously. Have we not improved drastically the communication tools that we've put in place for the citizens? And I need you to be as objective as possible, please.
Okay.
Because
Well,
I think we have.
I completely agreed with Tom Schwab. I'm
Yeah.
against not publishing public notices. And that should be addressed, and that probably should have been a consultation of citizens
But
during a meeting.
in other areas, do you agree that we've strived to improve communications to the
I
citizens?
find it's partly to do, apparently, because there's a lot of modifications to our zoning bylaw. I mean, it's a long, modification after, there must be 50
Okay,
by
how about I
now.
rephrase that, in general?
Okay. It takes a long time to get access to public information
I hear you,
because the
Mrs. Vaughn.
staff
I hear
is
you.
overloaded with all of these things. So
I hear you,
that
Mrs.
is
Vaughn.
one of my
I
complaints.
hear you, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you. D'autres questions?
Madame Kissania a gagné.
Thank you for waiting till the end, ma'am.
That's okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
I have a question regarding your favorite street in Pierrefonds, Logan Street. Yeah. When I spoke with you in September, one of the things we touched on very quickly was the amount of traffic on Logan.
Yep.
And I said that we have roughly 250 50 cars a day that pass by the street, and you thought I was sort of over-exaggerating.
I
Well-
said that? I said that?
Yeah.
I said I was over,
You said that was a little bit high. You said it
Okay,
was a
I
little
didn't
bit
say you
high.
were over-exaggerating,
No, it was a little
number
bit
one.
high.
I don't even know if I said that, to be honest.
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
You did.
fair enough.
So that's why I decided, I had nothing better to do recently, and I said, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to count the cars.
I'm glad you did, because it's quite eye-opening.
So, for example, here for the people, on Friday, October the 19th, between 3:25 p.m. and 4 p.m., we had 236 vehicles going up and down Logan Street,
Yeah.
most of them going east.
Yeah.
Most of them coming from Hyman Drive and coming off of Ceres and using Logan as a shortcut to Gouin and
Yeah.
further on.
You know that a lot of those folks are Dollard residents?
I know that.
Okay.
I know that. I haven't done a morning count. It doesn't seem to be as bad in the morning as it is in the evening,
Yeah.
but it's nonstop. So then comes up the issue. Logan is supposed to be a three-way stop. That does not exist. We slide through.
Yeah.
I noticed in Dollard recently, they have put up beside the stop signs, actually under the stop sign, another sign that shows three-way stop.
We have that in other locations.
We need that on our street. I know you're not necessarily in favor of speed bumps, but a speed
No,
bump
it's not what I
was...
said. I
Well,
was the one that said at the last
It's
council
a
meeting.
last-
At the last council meeting, I said that we're planning on revisiting the whole file of speed bumps
Okay.
because we've tried other measures, and honestly, in some areas, they work. In other areas, they have no impact at all. And so what we're looking at, and I've instructed Mr. Gignac with his committee to revisit that whole file through the winter months to look at a strategy on where we can place them in strategic locations, possibly on Logan, that may solve a particular issue. However, as Mr. Gignac mentioned, the issue of traffic control and speed is a very difficult one to pinpoint, because if we fix it on one street,
you'll get
it will cause problems on our neighboring
That's
streets. When we have over 250 kilometers of residential streets, nobody really understands that, but you could drive to Ottawa and almost back, and we have that many kilometers of residential streets in Pierrefonds-Roxboro.
Well, in our area, where I see the speed bump would be on Logan, and also you'd have to put it on parts of Basswood
Yeah.
and Alexander.
Yeah,
It's not something that's going to get solved overnight, but it really has to be looked at, because we were never meant to be a thoroughfare.
I agree.
The way the street was designed, it's designed as a lower letter Y, and it's not meant to be a thoroughfare, and we are a shortcut. It's not safe for the people who live on the street, it's not safe for people who are driving,
Yeah.
and it's very unsafe for the pedestrians, those who are going to take the 208 bus, and those who go up Ceres or up the street to the park to go to the train station. That brings me...
We tried to secure the area of the train station with the crosswalk and the signage, as you saw
Yeah.
a little while ago. We've made improvements in that area to try to at least allow people to safely cross the street in that location, which had become problematic with the addition of the bike path that's there as well now. I've given your statistics to Mr. Gignac. We brought it up with the commander. I will discuss it with him again. And Mr. Gignac is going to explore some options for your street. In the winter, we can't put, of course, these types of
Nope.
traffic curbing measures, but it's something that we're going to work towards in the spring and see if there's something that we can place there. We will, once we decide if anything is going to be done then, or what will be done there, we will come and see you as well, okay? And give you at least the information on what we plan to do. I have to tell you that no matter what we do, it's not going to solve everything.
Exactly.
Okay? The only option to not have that street used as a thoroughfare is to block it somewhere.
Well, that's our dream. Our dream is that in the corner of Logan and Alexander, the blocks are put up.
Yeah.
They allow pedestrian traffic, they allow bicycle traffic, but it's going to block the cars.
I don't know if that's permitted, first of all, and this is what Mr. Gignac is going to explore with all the stakeholders. And again, we've looked at other areas that are similar to yours, and we were told in the past that it's nothing, we aren't allowed to do that, to close the street. But again, nothing is impossible. We're going to look at it, okay, and we'll talk again before something takes place.
My second question relates to what's coming up for us, winter.
Yeah.
And that means snow removal.
Yep.
In our area, it's more like lack of snow removal. Again, as I said, Logan is a Y. The people who live on the short end of the Y, which are addresses 9063 to 9094, they have abysmal snow removal on Logan. Last year, that part of the street had snow removal twice. Just twice. The snowplow comes barreling through at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, does its run, does not turn up the street to do the other part of the street and go through the circle and clear them out. They make their own tracks. Last year in March, or this year in March, when we had that horrible snowstorm, they were never cleared out until the end of the month when the snow blowers came by to widen the street. They made their own pathway.
Okay.
We had freezing rain. To walk up that part of Logan, you're taking your life in your hands. Even if you've got crampons on your feet, you are still taking your life in your hands.
Yeah, that's not normal.
The other part of the problem is that where we have the stop signs, the cars, they spin their tires, it becomes ice. They slide through. We have called for grit, we have called for sand, it does not come, it's not put down. It's just simply like a skating rink. The other problem with Logan is as you're going west on Logan, there is a slight slope before you hit Ceres. That becomes a ski run. You can slide your way through. The other situation is on Ceres, going towards the train station as you go right. The little bombardier that runs by to clear the sidewalk does a horrible job. You are left with a more dangerous situation than leaving the snow there. People are walking on the road because it's not safe to walk on the sidewalk. Now, if you want people to walk to the train, clear the sidewalk properly. Put down enough abrasion that we can walk safely. Or do as was done for about the first 2 or 3 years when the park was open, when Ceres Park was open at the end of Logan. We have a little pathway there. It was actually cleared out, and it was done a good job clearing out, because a lot of people like to go there to catch the train instead of walking down the ski run and then going over an unsafe sidewalk.
Mr. Baudouin is here, and I know he's listening attentively because it's an issue that we have in a lot of the areas where they're third-level streets, okay? It's not a
Yep.
main artery. There's a procedure where the arteries are to be done first, and then they, for example, I'm like you, I'm a third-level street. My street isn't done as often as the street next to me even, because that main street is just on the side of where I am, and my street is done maybe half the times the other one is done, okay? That's the reality of how we snow clear. If what you're telling me is true, that one of these sections was done only twice in the year, then Mr. Baudouin has taken that note and he's going to look back with his teams and find out what the problem has been. And the sidewalks, I agree with you. There are particular cases, as you know, with the freezing rain and all the type of weather that we've had, it hasn't been easy to keep up and put enough abrasives down to make sure that, you know, it is the way we think. The reality, too, is that folks want to see asphalt. It's impossible. In some of the streets, you will never see asphalt. In my street, you never see asphalt. It's snow or packed down snow. Because in order for the salt to work, you need to have a lot of traffic. The cars have to, because that's what chemically happens to salt. That's what breaks down the ice. You can put as much salt as you want. Try it on your pathway.
I'm not talking about salt, I'm talking about abrasives.
Yes, but I'm giving an example for salt, because folks, you know, they say, well, they didn't put salt down. Well, if you put abrasives down, not all the time, but a lot of the times, if the street isn't, or is an intersection, let's say,
Yes.
where cars are spinning their wheels, that's going to turn to ice anyways. And that's why Mr. Baudouin is going to check with his teams and see what the frequency is, because they have a route that they go through, right, on every sector, in every sector. And I'm not sure if that's D'Amour, Mr. Baudouin? Yeah, that's a contractor that
Yeah,
does
it's
your
a
sector.
contractor,
It's not
it
the
is.
city.
No, it's not.
So, which for us, we have specific rules for the contractor to respect, and the frequency and the amount of abrasives. I mean, that's all detailed in the contract. And if we see that that's not being respected, well, we're going to follow up and make sure that it is. And now you're telling us, this is the first I hear of it. So if that's the case, then we're going to make sure we follow up with this contractor and make sure that he's at least respecting the contract that we have with him.
May I also bring up the fact that Guillaume, just west of Pierrefonds Boulevard,
Yeah.
that's another street that is actually quite narrow and quite dangerous to go around. And that is a street that We go there quite often, especially in the winter months. You have a nice ski run on your car to go through those corners. That needs to be looked after. And in the summertime, people there have got their cars parked on both sides.
Yeah.
So you barely get one car to go through.
Yeah, can I tell you another thing about parking on the streets? We can talk about this all night there, but you know what people do? I see it on my street. I have 10 houses on my street, and when the snowplow passes, you know what happens? Everybody puts their cars, or even before the snowplow passes, they put their cars on the street. You know why? Because they want their contractor to do the driveway.
Do the driveways.
And then we don't pass on the street because we can't get through. And then what happens? They put their cars back in their driveway and they're calling us complaining, how come the city's not going by? Well, wait a second. I couldn't go by. It wasn't safe for us to go by. We couldn't fit on the street because you're worried about your driveway. This is a recurring, and Monsieur Baudouin could talk to you for hours about it. This is, and somebody should travel in a truck with these guys to see what we live every day. Not me, but those guys and the security, because folks are more concerned about their driveway than the streets. And you have people that are parking that unnecessarily on the streets because they're so concerned about their driveway, and we've already done our run there. And by the time we come back, it's going to be hours later. And if it hasn't been done once because we couldn't get through, we're not coming back until we do the run completely and come back. And there's a whole orchestra taking place when they're doing snow removal. And unfortunately, as much educating that we do with our communications department, we continuously have to tell people that the streets are not to be parked on for any reason in the winter because the plows just can't get through. We've had plows pile up the snow and have had to back up to leave a sector because people don't move their cars.
Well, the plows that comes, the private contractor, I don't know, it's the same one this year, it's going to be.
It is, yeah.
Well, when he goes by, he just simply shoves the snow a little bit, and then it's for everybody, take your risk. Car goes by, pedestrians are walking. Sometimes the snow got high, you really couldn't see what was there because
Yeah.
it was covering the stop sign.
Yeah.
We've become a major thoroughfare,
Yeah.
whether we want to be or not. Then maybe we should be plowed like a major thoroughfare?
Ma'am, you bring up excellent points, and we're going to follow up with the contractor and make sure that these and other issues we look into. I will speak again with the SPVM regarding the number of cars. Mr. Gignac is going to look at it with the traffic committee and all the stakeholders around the table to see what are some measures we can put in place as early as this spring to try to fix a little bit of what you're living through, okay? I'm aware of it. I've seen it, not to the degree that you have on paper, but I've seen it, that it's used as a passage to get to point. And a lot of the dollar folks that are leaving are avoiding Sunnybrook because they don't want to go to Gouin. They're coming through your area. And on the way back, it's the same thing.
Yep, I know.
Because they want to avoid the light at the
Yeah,
community center,
exactly.
to turning left, so they come down your street. It's so much easier for
They
them.
can avoid 4 lights.
Oh, I know that. I know. I've seen it. And so I don't know about closing the street, but we're going to look at some of the other options, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank
But
you
our
very
dream
much.
still is close the street. Thank you.
Thank you for waiting till the end, ma'am. Thank you.